Greetings everyone, Jeremy Sutton again from precisionprinciple.com on day 13 of the intensive Ashtanga yoga training. And today I'd like to talk a little bit more about ego, but on a more practical level. Yesterday we discussed ego, mindfulness, meditation. How are they related? What can I do about this? How can I develop self-discipline, self-awareness? And sometimes these topics seem a little bit lofty, a little bit esoteric, a little bit out there because they're not always so easily grasped. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about ego in a very practical sense, in the sense that how does ego affect us on a day-to-day basis in our yoga practice? Now this is very relevant for those of us who practice yoga in a studio in the West. Maybe we have yoga packages as part of our gym membership, because a lot of the times we'll go into a yoga studio, and even though yoga in its full sense is about developing presence of mind, about getting through ignorance, about seeing ourselves as we really are, about getting past the ego, a lot of the times people are worried about going to a yoga studio because they look around and they feel like all they see is ego. All they feel is this impulsive instinct to compare themselves to whoever's next to them, and oh, who's doing good and who's not doing so good, and where do I land in this whole hierarchy, right? So today I want to go into how does the ego get in our way when we're trying to develop a mindful practice or a yoga practice or even a university degree or a workout routine or a new career. How does it affect us on a more practical basis? And in particular, this urge to always compare ourselves to the other people around us is a big part of the problems that ego causes. This self-centeredness and this urge that, oh, I gotta be better than everybody else. I don't want to be the worst. I want to be the best, right? So this can be a compelling quality in ourselves, right? Like if I want to be better, then I might be able to discipline myself to get to the gym more often or to get to the yoga studio more often. And in some sense, if I'm driven to want to be able to do a handstand, then maybe I'm likely to go practice at the yoga studio more often. But I'm here to caution as well that ego can be a source of obstacle as much as it can be, or even more than it can be, a motivation to keep on going. And why is this? Well, in one sense, we are where we are. Personally, I have very tight hips and back joints. My hamstrings are tight, my hips are tight. It's hard for me to open up my legs in a butterfly pose. This whole middle section of my body is extremely tight. And, like most people in a yoga practice, and especially when I look at the women around me in this Ashtanga yoga class, and especially Vijay, the teacher of the class, and I see them doing all sorts of incredibly interesting and cool acrobatic motions that it's taken them years to develop, I too would like to attain such goals. I'm interested in moving that way, right? But the problem is that if I let this sense of competitiveness get out ahead of me, and I say, oh, well, I want to be as good as them, or I want to be better than them, right? Maybe I start to push myself really hard. Maybe I push myself too hard. And nothing can slow your progress more than an injury, more than a pulled muscle, a strained knee, from going a little bit too hard, from going too far past your current limits. Now, it's a sensitive balance here because, of course, if I want to get more flexible, I do need to push myself, right? But when I let ego come into a yoga studio on a regular basis, then basically what we get is a condition that's not very cooperative, that's not very helpful for all of us in reaching our collective goals. Because why are we really in the yoga studio? Are we there to do a handstand better than other people who are there? Or are we there to increase our health, to improve our equilibrium? The point is that the only person that we're actually in competition with is ourselves. And the only thing that we're trying to get past is our present limits, right? But we don't need to shoot way past them. What we need to do is keep expanding those limits step by step, right? So the competitive urge that the ego can bring to a yoga studio, can be one that encourages us to, one, push past our limits to the extent that we are going to injure ourselves. Two, be focused on everybody else in the studio and how well they're doing and how well we compare to them, instead of being focused on our own practice and just doing the best that we can so that we can make progress as quickly as possible. And 3, instead of getting over ourselves, we're basically entrenching ourselves more deeply in the ego. That is, the more that I get obsessed with trying to be the best or trying to just be better than these other people around me, the less likely it is for me to actually achieve the full benefits, the full goals of yoga, which, I mean, maybe it's enlightenment, but most of us aren't really doing yoga for pure enlightenment, right? Most of us are just trying to get a little bit healthier, a little bit more flexible. So in this way, the ego can really get in the way of not only my own practice, but of everyone in the studio's practice as well. As soon as I start looking around and start, comparing myself to everyone else, now maybe other people notice that I'm looking around, and now they're starting to look around too, or maybe they were already looking around. The point is that, on the other hand, if I am just focused on my own mat, because your yoga happens on your mat, my yoga happens on my mat. Everyone else around me is part of this group, but really it's an individual activity. I'm not comparing myself against them. I'm comparing myself against where I am now and where I would like to be, and trying to reduce this gap, right? To try to move ourselves towards these goals. And those goals might be physical, stretching, gymnastic type balance, or on a more profound level, those goals might be equilibrium, well-being, contentedness, and just the ability to focus and lose myself in the flow in the workout routine that I'm in right now. Now, this is just one of the almost endless ways that our egoic self-centeredness gets in the way of our collective well-being, of our collective goals. Another example of this is in driving, for example. This is really probably the most prominent area where this manifests so frequently. For example, traffic. There's a whole mob of us. We're all moving in the same direction. We're all trying to get somewhere. All right. Well, if I am just narrow-mindedly focused on getting to where I got to go as fast as possible, I'm going to cruise up right behind the person ahead of me, and as soon as I can, I'm going to pull around him, and as soon as I can, I'm going to pull around the next guy, and keep zooming up to the next spot, right? Closing in that following distance, which, in driver's ed, what do they tell us about driving distance? They say, try to keep 4 seconds of following distance. Try to keep a pad of space. Now, when we pursuing my own goals, I zoom up next to the person ahead of me, and then I have to slam on my brakes, so I slow way down. The person behind me just doesn't look ahead either, so he thinks that I'm moving really fast, and then all of a sudden, I slow down, then he has to slow down, right? And then that person has to slow down, and then the next person has to slow down, and this is called a ghost in the traffic, where there doesn't have to be this spot where we slow down, speed up, but it happens not as an actual thing, but as a pattern in the driving cycle. This pattern of driving up to this point, and this ghost will kind of, this point of speeding up and slowing down will sort of drift through traffic, but people could be, if traffic's heavy enough, for hours could be slowing down, speeding up. Now, it doesn't take a great physicist to understand that when traffic is constantly slowing down, speeding up, that this is causing all of traffic to move more slowly, right? It takes a lot more energy to accelerate your car and to decelerate your car than it does just to move at a constant rate. And ultimately, if we could just stay at a constant rate, allowing traffic to move, we would all get to our destinations more quickly. Right? So the point is this, that selfish individuals, which is usually most of us, or just mindless individuals, which again is often most of us when we're driving around not considering the well-being of the whole traffic situation, we speed up, or we, in our lack of awareness, we come right up next to the car ahead of us because we didn't look ahead and notice that the traffic was going. So this lack of mindfulness, or this self-centered desire to get to where I want to go, and I don't really care about everyone else, but I'm going to get there quickly as possible. What this does is this causes problems, as in slower traffic, for the entire collective of our traffic situation, right? So something similar happens in so many areas of life. People avidly pursuing selfish ends, getting in the way of actually their own ends. Sometimes, this is the problem, is that sometimes that guy or girl who's trying to cruise around in traffic and get there as fast as everybody else, sometimes, maybe even often, he does get there a little slightly faster than he would have had he just cruised in traffic. And so what happens? This encourages him to do it again next time, to do it again next time. So there's a feedback loop that basically this lack of mindfulness is rewarded, right? This is positive reinforcement for a bad behavior. And ultimately, unless someone mindfully steps out of that behavior, they might be reinforced to do this all the time, which means that every time that person's in traffic, it's bad for the collective traffic situation. Whereas if we could always just create the following distance, we would be able to have a really smooth collective enterprise. Someone needs to get over, oh great, there's already a little bit of space there for them to get over, so we can just let them merge in, and it's just fluid. We can slowly create the space back out instead of having to slam on the brakes and accelerate, slam on the brakes. All right, back to the original point, that the same thing happens in the yoga studio when we let the ego out of control, when we let the ego to zoom ahead and do whatever it wants. Basically, in the selfish desires, in the self-centered desires to do whatever I have to do, maybe I go too fast and I cause an accident. I pull a muscle, and then after I pull a muscle, maybe I slow my progress for weeks, right? If I ruin my car, it's hard to drive about. Or maybe in my own dashing about, I am distracting everybody else from their own practice. I'm trying to just do my own thing, and I'm just really being loud and annoying and really overt, and it's distracting for everybody else, right? Or the point is that when we come to the yoga studio, for us to gain maximum benefits and to really to get the deep sense of yoga, we need to check the ego at the door. Just come in wherever you are. That's great. Wherever you want to be, just keep working at it with persistence, and collectively, we're going to get there, all right? The other thing is that the ego, if I let it come into my practice too much, if I find that I want to go so fast, I just want to be doing a handstand already. Maybe it takes 6 months to do a handstand. Maybe it takes 6 years to do a handstand. It doesn't matter. It's going to take a while to get there. What happens when in my selfish pride and my desire and my self-belief that, I can do anything in about 2 weeks, right? What happens when, after 2 weeks of constant practice, I don't achieve the handstand? Oh, I'm shocked. My sense of pride is shattered. I can't believe how long it's taken me to do this. I've been here 2 weeks. What's going on? Why can't I get this done? Oh, yoga sucks. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Right? So our lack of progress, our egoic ignorance that we should be somewhere already, right? What are we based on this? Who said you should be able to do a handstand in 2 weeks? Who said you should be able to do it in 6 months? It's going to take you as long as it takes you, and it's going to depend on your practice. But oh no, I didn't make my goal in the time that I thought it would. I thought it would be faster, but I was wrong, and now I'm just discouraged. Now I just don't want to practice, right? So in this lack of achieving my goal, I now discourage myself from practicing further. And now maybe I'm never going to get the goal, because now I'm done with yoga. Yoga sucks. Screw this. I'm out of here, right? Okay, but now let's look at the contrast. What about a more selfless pursuit of yoga, even if that's even possible? How about a less egoic pursuit, but it's still a pursuit towards self-realization? Let's say that I come to class with equilibrium, with calmness, and with focus every day. What happens then? I come to my mat. I don't let other people's dress or ego, or don't let them creep onto my mat. My yoga happens on my mat. Yours happens on your mat, and that's okay, right? I come down maybe before class. I get into a nice child's pose. I might just do a little bit of light stretching, and I prepare myself mentally and physically for the yoga that's there. Maybe I'm the first one there, and I'm kind of already quietly preparing. So when the next person comes in, they notice this focused attention, and it's almost like an aura. It's almost like an energy filling the room. If they're aware of my focus, they're probably going to be less likely to come in and just start chatting about whatever they've been doing all day, or chatting about whatever they're worried about tomorrow, because they're going to kind of see, oh, this guy's focused, and he probably doesn't want his focus broken with just mindless chattering, right? Even if they don't think this deliberately, if someone's there in a meditative state, they're not going to just come in and start chatting, because they're going to be aware that this person's in a quiet room and probably enjoying this. So the next person comes in quietly, and then they also start to get prepared quietly. And the next person comes in, and now there's 2 people preparing quietly. And now there's 3 or 4 people. Everyone's kind of focused, and everyone's kind of setting the tone for the yoga practice, already coming down to a sense of calmness, a sense of focus, and a sense of tranquility as we get prepared to enter into the practice. Then, as we enter the practice, we just do so with a mindful focus. So the egoic side could be contagious, could cause problems for the system to kind of spiral out of control, but also the other side, the focus side, maybe the higher self side, the more presence, mindful side of us, can encourage mindfulness around all the people among us. And now, because I'm not disillusioned about how fast I should be progressing or what I should be doing, I just come back and I practice every day. And I just stick with it diligently. And maybe this person, who only comes maybe twice a week, every time this person comes, sees me sitting there in a silent, focused state of mind. And this person thinks, wow, that guy over there is really, really focused. He seems really in key, in line. And look, it looks like he's making fast progress. Every time I come here, this guy's here, right? So what happens now? Now it's contagious. This person thinks, look at that mindful equilibrium. I actually would like to be a little bit more mindful myself. So this mindfulness starts to be a little bit contagious as well. It starts to pervade the classroom. And now we're all making steady progress. And maybe we're all feeling more inspired to work because we're not worried about, oh, am I as good as him or is she better than me? Instead, we're just all happy to be making progress at a steady rate the whole time. And as a result, the traffic is moving along smoothly. We're all getting to our destinations more quickly than we would had we been self-centered, focused on our own desires, and comparing ourselves to others. Oh, this guy's in front of me. I need to get past him as quickly as possible, right? These are things that impede our progress, whereas these mindful aspects, this collective vibe, can totally help us all get to where we want to be more quickly. Of course, this idea, this a little bit more collaborative idea, feels sometimes, especially for those of us in Western societies who are in competitive, maybe we have competition at work, competition at school, competition for jobs, competitions for couples, for dating, right? There's all this competition. And all of a sudden we feel like, wait a minute, is this, don't I just naturally bring this competitive nature to my yoga practice? Isn't that what life is all about? And it might be what life is all about for some of us, but it doesn't have to be, and it may not be the most efficient way to get what you want. And working together in some situations might be more effective. It might not too. It's not there's not many absolutes in this world. But the point is that we can try it out. And gaining this sort of equilibrium, this cooperative mindset, at least when we come to the yoga studio, can help us sort of emphasize the opposite side of the coin. Maybe I'm always on the individual competitive nature, right? Maybe just once a week or once a day when I come to my yoga practice, I emphasize that other side. That side that says, hey, I'm going to work together with these people. I'm going to put my ego aside for a minute and sort of focus on different goals, right? If we're always on one side of this coin, it's good to sort of balance it out with a little bit of the other side, what the Buddha might call the middle path, right? That balanced lifestyle, not too cooperative, not too competitive, somewhere in the middle. And most of us in Western society, coming from very competitive places, probably need to overemphasize the cooperative nature. Dan Millman, in one of his books, has a great example that, if you're trying to throw a rock at a tree and you miss too far to the right, next time maybe you're going to aim more to the left, but you find you still threw it too far to the right. So the next time you need to deliberately throw it too far to the left, so that way you can get a sense of right where that middle is, right? So for those of us emphasizing the competitive nature, maybe we need to overemphasize the cooperative for a minute, and then we can kind of come back and really strike a true balance with that situation. And this can yield dividends in our yoga practice. So that is all for today. It's time for me to get back to class. Anatomy starts today, and I'll have more information on that for you tomorrow. But in the meantime, keep learning, keep growing, and have a great day.